Good morning, good evening, and good day. You're listening to Drama Buds, an anime podcast. So hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Drama Buds. I gotta say it right now before we begin. Once again, this is not a positive review of Island. I cannot convince myself that what I watched was good in any way. So this is not a positive review. Just to warn you, if you don't want to hear that, that's absolutely your right if you don't want to hear it. But just know that this is an affectionate review. It's not coming from a place of, I want to pick on this show. It's more like, I tried. I watched it with good intentions, okay? I watched it to the best of my ability. I gave it my best shot for these actors, for the hard work that I know everyone put into this show. But fundamentally, if the writing is bad and the directing is bad too, it's impossible. It's impossible to save this show from what it was. It tried its best. Everyone tried their best, but the people at the head of it let them down. And once again, okay, I did not hate watch Island. Because you think like, oh, if you have a negative review on it, but you still kept watching it, you're hate watching it. Like, why'd you do that? Which is something that I personally, I try not to do that anymore. Because it's a waste of my very, very, very little energy and patience in this world. I don't hate watch as much as I used to. Hate watching is when you are nitpicking something, right? Looking for things to not like about it. But it's because it has potential, right? It could have been something good or something you liked, but it just didn't satisfy you. And that it's that annoying gap, like you could have been this. And so you keep picking on the things that, failed to reach what you thought it would be. To me, that's hate watching. I'm not hate watching this because this had no potential to be good. Okay, it really, like, from the very beginning, writing and directing wise, it's just hopeless. It was a hopeless show. So, I was not hate watching this. Like, truly, it was bad, but I kept watching anyway. So, okay, basic details on Island. Just so you know, this director, he directed some movies that I don't know of. It has two writers. I mean, aside from the webtoon it was based on, the ones who adapted it into a drama. One of them is like an assistant writer in Jinxed at first. And the other wrote some dramas I don't know of. And it stars Kim Nam-gil, who I've seen in Through the Darkness, Emergency Declaration. I tried a little bit of The Fiery Priest. It stars Lee Da-hee, who I've seen in Love is for Suckers mostly, and I Hear Your Voice. I loved her there. And Cha Eun-woo, who, I saw a bit of True Beauty back then. And Song Joon, who is currently in Call It Love also, which I have not gotten back to because I'm very busy and I want to give it my best shot. I want to sit down properly and give it my full attention, but I don't have the time or the privacy to do so right now. Anyway, Island is about this Chebol Harris, Wonmiho, played by Lee Da-hee, who moves to Jeju and discovers that demons keep coming after her. And then she meets Van, played by Kim Nam-gil, a half-demon who is also a demon hunter who was trained to be a demon hunter, and an exorcist, Johan, played by Cha Eun-woo, who wants to protect her because she's the chosen one who will create the barrier to protect the world from demons. And we also have Gung Tan, played by Song Joon, who is Van's brother, who was also turned into a half-demon. And he hates humans because they were turned into half-demons and trained to be hunters as children, and they were treated like hunting dogs and animals who could never become humans again and could never be human or feel human emotions again. Meanwhile, Van has affection for humans because he experienced compassion from Wonjong, who reincarnated into Wonmiho. And then when Wonmiho becomes aware of, her past life and all this lore, she decides to train to fulfill her role in the prophecy and save the world. That's it. I'm gonna skip the plot and the characters because it's not even worth talking about. Like, everything I've said about them, that's all that matters. The role and the plot. They're not good characters. very little depth. I may talk a little bit about them, but yeah, not even worth getting into them as individuals. Now, the core problem of this show is the writing. I'll skip the world building and the lore. I did not pay enough attention to those things to assess it properly. Like, was the lore and the world building consistent? I don't know, okay? I cannot claim that I fully understood it and that I can explain it to others. But, I mean, for the most part, I think I was able to follow along while watching without getting too lost or too caught up in the details. Like, I think it all made sense. So I'm not gonna be talking about that. It's fantasy. So your mileage is already going to vary based on how much suspension of disbelief you can stomach or how much you're willing to just roll with whatever they're throwing at you. So yeah, that's fine. I think what I can talk about more is the pacing, because it was both too slow and still managed to be rushed and choppy. Or remember, this show was split into part 1 and part 2, which is just 6 episodes each. It's one whole season. I think they did it because of editing, because it was just so CGI intensive that they needed more time to edit it. So yeah, that's what happened. But there really wasn't much of a story or pacing difference between parts 1 and 2. It really just was one season that they couldn't release at once because they needed more time to edit. Anyway, so they spent the first half of the show establishing the lore, establishing Miho coming to Jeju and the three of them forming a team-ish around Miho to protect her. I thought we would get a problem or a monster of the week situation to keep things moving. Because, dangerous situations will bring characters together and establish relationships and motives. And although they did have some relationships and some motives, it wasn't consistent. And okay, I've been saying a lot of things, but actually inconsistent is the right word. Inconsistent pacing is the problem of this show. By the first half, I was still patient because I thought, okay, they were building up this solid team for the second half to go after the villain, right? But the second half started out going even deeper into Van and Gongtan's backstory instead of moving the story along. Like, they treated the backstory as if it were some huge mystery that, would explain everything. But it was just so predictable that, what's the point of withholding this story from us for so long and then cutting short the momentum of this show, what little momentum it had, to, go into a full backstory flashback episode. Then there were episodes where, it would be the monster of the week. They would fight a demon that Gongtan awakened. But then there were episodes where they just had more flashbacks and more lore and more world building. And, okay, that's just the general pacing of the show, right? Within the episodes, it's also just as bad. There was no logical flow to the scenes, right? Even if there were only, what would I say, 5, 10? Less than 10 characters. Less than 10 characters to pay attention to. I think this might actually be a manhwa/webtoon adaptation problem. Because I remember I've read some manhwas where the first scene, let's say they release a new chapter, a new episode, the first scene might not always be a continuation of what happened in the previous scene. It's like a cold open or a flashback, or just a completely separate thing from the cliffhanger or the way they ended the chapter before it. And then that goes on, and then when it ends, we get the title card of the webtoon, and then we continue the story in some other way. Now, with my limited knowledge and experience with manhwas and webtoons, I'll just refer to them as webtoons. I think that's more accurate, the ones I've read. They tend to have a more disjointed feeling because they're posted weekly-ish, and there's really there are no standards on how it should be paced, like the story overall, and how chapters should start and end, and how much story it should cover. Like, one scene, one whole conversation can run for one chapter or 3 or 5. It can run for 5 chapters if the artist wants it to. Maybe watch today's webtoon. I didn't finish that show, but maybe that will give some insight on the webtoon world. But yeah, that's a thing that happens there. But a good TV adaptation will not adopt the same problems as the original. Okay, as the original medium. It's your job to improve on it in the medium that you're adapting it into. Right? Make it good for TV. You're already changing so much. Couldn't you have improved on the pacing of the webtoon you're taking it from? But yeah, the whole insight on webtoons, man, was it's just a comment, maybe a consideration. But I'm not excusing this show because other webtoon adaptations didn't really have this kind of problem. Aside from the pacing, the characterization, it's also inconsistent. Like, things happen to the characters and you think, okay, this is finally going to be the thing that kickstarts or continues their character arc. But then they just return to being the same person that they were before the massive character-changing event in the next episode. Like, let me just say though, disclaimer, each actor did their absolute best with the material. Seriously. Kim Nam-gil, Lee Da-hee, Chao-nu, Song-joon, everyone did their absolute best with the material. Seriously. But if Kim Nam-gil cannot save his character, then no one can. Although I think Kim Nam-gil and Van, kind of the most consistent character among them. But that's not saying much, okay? Van is a tortured soul. He was physically tortured and he is mentally and emotionally tortured. And he's been alive carrying this burden for hundreds of years. And you can feel the weight of his long life and everything he's been through on him in his sad, sad eyes. Oh, Kim Nam-gil. Oh. The tsundere act with Miho is objectively bleh. Objectively, but subjectively, more on that later. Okay, let's go to Miho. One Miho is, okay, she's a ditzy chaebol. And then she's a scared damsel in distress. And then she's a clingy, whiny, cutesy girl with Van. And by the way, anything that involves Van and Miho, more on that later. Of course, it's gonna get a dedicated section. There was a time in episodes 9 to 10, because she was possessed by a demon or something that would make her kill herself, and she was just thinking of all the people who betrayed her or died during her time in Jeju, died because of her, or, you know, thinking about how she failed or she couldn't create the barrier, she couldn't fulfill the prophecy or whatnot. Like, she couldn't be Wonjong, who everyone needed. And I thought, oh, finally, we are going to see emotional consequences to them because of everything that's happened. But in the next episode, right, she just goes back to being ditzy and cutesy with Van. Like, literally no mention of all the traumatic things that she was dealing with finally in the previous episode. Suddenly, gone. Like it never happened. And generally, events or losses that would seem devastating and character-defining are just completely forgotten by the writers. And the worst victim of this, to me, is Johan. He literally had to kill his long-lost brother, who he had just reunited with, but was turned into a demon, okay? He literally had to do that, and then he was sad for half an episode, I swear. And then he went back to being, you know, cutesy and spunky, I guess. I wanted Johan to grieve. I wanted him to work even more closely with Van to find Gungtan and get revenge on him. And his brother and revenge maybe was mentioned once or twice toward the end, but that's it. He was always cast aside doing nothing, while Van and Miho were the ones who were linked by her past life as Wonjong. And yeah, he and Van had this shared mission of protecting Miho so she could create the barrier. But I saw Van's personal investment in it. I saw that he had an arc related to Miho. But for Johan, like, at some point, I didn't know why he was here. I'm not gonna say, honestly, if I say he's a useless character, it's not the character's fault. It's the writer's fault for not giving him anything to work with. Like, half of the time, you could just write him out and he would barely make an impact. And before any stans come after me, once again, not an attack on the character or the actor. It's just like literally an attack on the writers. Because they sometimes, I think they just forgot that, right? Don't we have to give Johan something to do? Because he was literally doing nothing. Talk about Gungtan briefly. Gungtan went from cliche supervillain who corrupts beings on the island and turns them into demons to hunt Miho down. And then we're shown his backstory, right? And we see that he's kind of the other side of the coin with Van, right? He was also tortured by humans, but Gungtan was consumed with hate. And sometimes, right, he still feels and expresses compassion towards some humans, towards Bomji, this child that he saved from her abusive father, right? Like, oh, where did that come from? Where did that compassion come from? And then, suddenly, he commits mass murder and just goes back to being a supervillain who wants to kill everyone. What? What's happening here, right? I mean, humanizing the villain? Okay, I've seen it before. I wouldn't mind it. And then they just doubled back down on him just being an evil villain? Like, what? I don't know. And once again, all that humanization, forgotten. Like, it never mattered, never happened. There were so few characters to work with, but they still managed to make every single character meander, be pointlessly there until the end when suddenly, okay, it's time to do the big final battle, right? I never knew what a character was doing or where they were or why they were there. They just existed like pinballs, in the plot machine, doing whatever, whenever, wherever. And oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the last time I was this confused about what I was watching was Sisyphus the Myth. But at the very least, Island didn't make me think badly of Kim Nam-gil's acting the way Sisyphus the Myth made me think badly of Cho Sung-woo. Like, genuinely, some of my faith in Cho Sung-woo just dissipated. It's completely gone and I could never get it back because of what was that. At least in Island, I could still see that Kim Nam-gil was absolutely excellent, when he had to be the sad, tortured soul. Like, he still did great in the role, but I mean, terrible project in general. Now, I know that Island could be unwatchable for some people, and I absolutely understand that. Seriously, for anyone who dropped this, good on you. You didn't miss anything. It's fine. It's fine. It really just lost its way before it even found its way, briefly. For me, though, I think I was able to watch it because, one, I like the actors. Most importantly, I like the actors. That's mostly why I was still here. And two, it felt like I was watching a live action shonen anime or a video game, right? I'm 1,000% sure I've watched or played some combination of a really OP male protagonist and a female teammate who he may or may not have romance with, who they have to protect, and then a goofy third character. I literally cannot come up with what specific show or game I've witnessed this dynamic in, but I've seen it before. Or it's just so common that I don't even think about it. Yeah. I think that's why I was expecting the Monster of the Week pacing, because that's how animes usually do it, right? There's usually Monster of the Week until the big bad comes up and we see, how they've been building up to that introduction. And then for the rest of the anime, It's going after the big bad until the big climactic final battle. And then in video games, at least, it's even more involved because you fight monsters, you fight mini bosses, and you build your own team and you level up with your encounters to prepare for that big bad. Like, I think that's why I kept watching, because I was waiting for that build up. I was waiting for the team to come together, for their powers to grow. And yeah, sometimes we got Demon of the Week. Sometimes we got backstory. Then Miho had her training montage, and then it was the reveal of the tragic sacrifice that had to be made on the night before the final battle. And then here comes the final battle where all the forces, good and evil, come together. But because of that inconsistent pacing all throughout the show, the finale didn't feel as satisfying as it should have been.
The night beckons while you dream. A life never lives in peace.
Please note the quotation marks in the chapter title. Yes, the forced romance of this show. I have to acknowledge my biases. I love both of these actors. I think they're both hot. And I think they have chemistry that needs to be brought back in a romance melodrama to maximize everything that we all know they can give. This is beneath both of them. But still, they both did their best. Van Miho was forced as hell. And it's not even, quote-unquote explicit romance. Because people, they think it's not romance if there's no kiss. Babes, it was romance. Come on. But yeah, it's still forced as hell. They tried so hard with the close-up shots of their eyes and their hands, and then the random skinship and the almost kiss of looking at each other's lips, and then the unnatural but very romantic poses that they find themselves in. They were trying so hard, and I talk about it like this, but I ate it up. I ate it up, okay? Because I liked the actors and I wanted something tropey. Give me reincarnation. Give me star-crossed lovers. Give me grumpy sunshine. Come on. Give me Beauty and the Beast. Give me overpowered immortal and his damsel in distress. I don't care. Yeah, I'll eat it up, sure. I'm not even the biggest fan of reincarnation love. But I think it works because, well, one, okay, Van has been alive this entire time. And he had his memories, so it's not like they were both reincarnated and just instantly fell in love with each other the moment they first saw each other again. And then they find out like, oh, it's because we were lovers in a past life. None of that BS, okay? No. Van's been alive. Like, he recognized her. So that can help. I think it was also acceptable because Miho has always been ditzy and earnest and naive. And then we also have Wonjong, her past life, and her compassion to the half-demons kind of mirrors Miho's personality. So when Miho got Wonjong's memories back, her affection for Van made sense because it was kind of aligned with her present character's personality. So I don't know, it was acceptable. It was tropey, it was cliche, but acceptable for me at least. There was no way for this to end positively. I mean, of course there was a way, but whatever. Like, did it matter if it ended happily or it ended the way it ended? Like, bad writing is bad writing. I can't excuse it even if I want to, okay? Bad writing is bad writing. But I still love both of these actors. They acted the hell out of this. They tried their very best to sell this to us, even with the awful material. Like, genuinely, I feel them trying so hard. It's like, I commend you for sticking to this. Really. But I still want to see Kim Nam-gil and Lee Da-hee in a melodrama with all the pining and all the angst. No murder, because I always have to specify that nowadays. Cannot believe we live in that world. I have to specify no murder. Just two people looking at each other in silence and falling in love in silence. That's the best kind of melodrama. A gorgeous, gorgeous, intimate melodrama. Thank you very much. And that's it for me today. I've said so many negative things that I feel kind of bad. But also, like, I mean, I watched it, right? I watched it. I wasn't hating on it while watching it. I was just like in acknowledgement of how bad it was the entire time. And still, I finished it though. I don't even know if I can say I enjoyed it the entire time. And okay, rating wise, I put this at a 6.5 out of 10. It's almost as bad quality-wise as Sisyphus the Myth, which I gave a 4.5, right? That's the lowest I give something I finished, because a 4.5 means I would like to get my time back. But then as I was thinking about it, with Island, I was more invested in it than I was for shows that I ranked a 6. Shows like I don't know, Jirisan or Nevertheless. Like, genuinely those, I was just waiting for time to pass. Like, I just wanted it to be finished. But here, I was trying my best to watch it. So I thought, not good enough to even meet expectations in a 7. So a 6.5 is pretty decent. And okay, in fairness to Island, at no point did I think of dropping it. I really wanted to see this to the end. And I think it's, once again, because I was waiting for things to just kick in, right? And have the build up to the big final battle that I was looking for. I didn't give up on it, and I never thought of giving up on it. But it was not good. It was not good. But hey, it's over. It's fine. And for the most part, yeah. No, I can't even say anything. To soothe myself after everything I've criticized about the show. But once again, not coming from a place of I want everyone to hate this with me. It's just like, let's be objective about this. It wasn't good. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to talk more about K-dramas, we have a Discord channel. Links in the description. Just feel free to join us. Not much people here. Every single day, something terrible is happening on Twitter. Like, I don't know what is happening on that app anymore. So if that, just vanishes, I will also vanish. So might as well join the Discord channel, because it's fun. But thank you so much for listening, and I will see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow, and tell me what you thought about today's episode. See you soon!